Oh, hey everyone, it is Monday again. It's been a real Monday for me. I'm not even going to lie to you, but I'm happy to be here with all of you to talk about just reading. We talk about the books a lot, but tonight is all about the action itself. How do we get back into reading? Is it hard to focus? All that good stuff. We got a little bit of news to share with you. We got a whole lot of Star Wars loving to go to. But before all that, Wes has to punch it! Welcome to the Living Force, the UTD Network podcast, all about Star Wars books and just how freaking good they are. I'm one of your hosts, Eric Eilerson, and joining me tonight to talk all about how it can be hard to get in the habit of reading now and then, and that's okay, is the full cast of characters, including the now, we're pretty sure, board certified Dr. Corey Helton! What's up, man?
You like that? That's the double punch. I like to say my trademark dance move.
Look good.
Yes, I have passed my boards. I said last time that if I failed, you would not hear about it on the show. So I figured I should probably say that I passed, which means I am now a board certified family doctor. I've done with all the tests, at least for 10 years.
And come on, you're not going to be a doctor in 10 years. Let's be real.
That's probably true.
At least for 10 years? You have to take it again in 10 years?
Yes, you have to take a board exam every 10 years. That is correct.
Because medicine changes, and they're like, never mind, we were so wrong. You can't put mercury in people anymore.
That's right.
Oh, is that the sound of another board-certified Dr. Charles Hankel I hear?
I enjoyed that joke far too much, apparently. Yeah. I also got the preliminary, albeit, message that I passed, so that's good. But more importantly, the Miami Heat are up 3-1 against the Atlanta Hawks in round one of the Eastern Conference playoffs. So I'm happy. I'm happy to be here. And I want to talk about why I should be spending some of that time I've been watching basketball reading Star Wars books.
I appreciate your dedication to reading. I also do appreciate your dedication to the Heat. There's few things that feel better than your team doing well in the playoffs.
It's true.
But you know what does feel better than that? Looking into the eyes of Wes Jenkins on a weekly basis. What's up, dude?
Hey, everybody. I am pooped. I had a long weekend.
Been a day.
Very long weekend. Started on last Thursday. We did a wild game cook-off in down here in Cypress, Texas, and it was not just wild game. It was 6 different categories. So we did seafood and brisket and ribs and pork and wild game and
holy smokes.
My God.
Yeah, it was exactly, Corey. Smokes is correct.
Hey!
I was on my feet all day Friday, all day Saturday, but we took home some trophies. So it was our first big win.
Whole thing?
Didn't win the whole thing. Came in 3rd overall.
Wow,
third overall,
amazing, dude.
Out of like over 60 at a 60 cooks. So.
Holy!
Oh my God!
What was the wild game you cooked? What was like the weirdest thing?
We cooked
human meat.
Well, we cooked antelope.
Human meat.
Better.
It's wild game, but nobody wants to judge wild game because you don't know what it is, and they don't tell you what it is. So they're always like, whenever you turn in your meat, they're like, "Hey, come and sit down and judge wild game." When the people are just like. I don't think so. And so there were 5 of us on the same team that went into the tent to see if we could find see if we get our meat, but we did not because we were going to give it straight all 10s and then get everybody else 0s. But,
that's funny.
That's one way to do it.
Yeah, they figured that out. So yeah, I'm pooped, but I'm glad to be back in with electronics and air conditioning and out of the sun.
Absolutely. Well, we're happy to have you back. We're happy to have all of you here watching live and listening later. No matter how you're taking in our show, we love you. We hope you're having a good week. If you're watching us, of course, on YouTube, always remember to hit that like button. And always remember to subscribe to the channel to make sure you get all this sweet, sweet content. And if you're listening on a podcast platform and you haven't rated us yet, go ahead and do it. What does it hurt? If it's 5 stars, great. If it's not, lie. Good 5 stars anyway. Make those chumps listen to us. Joke's on them. Now, A couple other things I want to talk about. First of all, I didn't plan on this, but I did receive what I'm wearing right now, if you're on our video, is my Star Wars Celebration shirt. It's not sponsored in any way. I just thought the design was cool. And yo, look how rad this shirt looks. I'm going to stand up. Look at this.
Yeah, it's sick. If
Did
this
you-
is the artwork for the
yeah.
year, that looks
It
really
looks
sick.
awesome.
That's
It's a
awesome,
signature
dude.
artwork. And guys, this is a comfy shirt. It actually is very
Yeah. Oh,
they
breathable.
put
I'm
some
happy to wear it
quality on it.
to Celebration.
How long
Yeah,
is the
quality is
torso,
good.
though? Asking for Corey.
It's honestly, Corey
Let me see
aside,
how
I
long
will
that
say,
torso is.
Oh my god.
It is a form-fitted shirt. I'm currently wearing a small. It feels nice. It is also though long. So if you're a person that likes the shirts to be a little better fitted, it's also perfectly long. It's actually very, very solidly made. Not a sponsor, just a heads up. If you're thinking about buying the Celebration shirt, you should.
We're not sponsored by Celebration.
Celebration
I'm glad you
merch.
clarified that. Eric.
Also, this guy came in, which is our Anaheim Celebration 2022
Oh, nice.
pin, which I like a lot. I
Are
got
you
the
a pin
2020
guy?
pin. I am a huge pin guy. I'm not a pin trader though, although I've never been to Celebration before. So if one of y'all are pin traders and you come up and see me, I'll probably go into that because I need another hobby of Star Wars merchandise. That's my problem. I don't buy
Are
enough
any of
Star
those
Wars things.
yeah, that's totally true. Are any of those shirts left? Can you still buy them or are they all sold out?
Yeah, I think they're still in the Celebration store. I haven't checked recently, but you should be able to
I really
buy
think
them.
that
The shipping was easy.
I really think that I bought one, but I haven't gotten it yet. And basically everybody else I've seen has
Me
gotten
too.
theirs. So I'm like, I almost wondered, like maybe I didn't actually buy it. I need to go check my email and see if there's a receipt or something in there.
So you bought it on the
Yeah.
first day that they came on sale, Eric? Yes or
Yeah,
no?
the pre-orders because you got
Okay.
because if you got the tickets, you
that's
got
when I did it,
access
too.
earlier.
So I bought the three-quarter
Oh no, you
sleeve
can't
one.
buy them right now.
They're sold
Well,
out.
the store, the Star Wars Celebration store, live as of April 25th. There's no products in the collection right now, so I think if you haven't
Interesting.
pre-ordered yet, you might just have to get them at Celebration.
Billions there.
Fine. Do it there.
Anyway,
Maybe.
that being said, I'm very happy about it, and I'm going to be wearing the shirt one of these days at Celebration. Maybe it's going to be on Saturday during our panel. It won't be. I have a different shirt, but that's a segue to say, remember, our panel is going to be on Saturday at 10:30 a.m. We have the event, the event is later on that night. So Saturday is your Utini day. 10:30 a.m. is our panel, and at night at 6
Six.
p.m. is our party, the celebration. So make sure you get that in your mind. Saturday is Utini night. Very excited. Another thing you can get excited about for Utini company-wide is Kenobi Week. This is our cross-show podcast event starting
Super event.
on Super event. Thank you. Starting on May 16th on Monday with our show, which will be a Kenobi character spotlight in canon, going through Obi-Wan's kind of life as we have it in current canon continuity. Wednesday on the Cosmic Force, which will be the 18th, they will be going over the Obi-Wan comic from the Journals of Obi-Wan Kenobi, which you can pick up with an affiliate link in the doobly-doo description down below. Thursday on Legends Look Back, they'll be doing a roundtable of Kenobi by John Jackson Miller, one of our favorites. If you haven't read that book yet, you definitely should. Pick it up on audiobook. You can use our affiliate link on Audible if you want, or pick up the Essential Legends Collection version that just dropped. Friday, I believe we're going to try to have something on Utini Game Nights involving Obi-Wan. Still TBD which game that was, because I was very sad that Star Wars Obi-Wan on the original Xbox can't be played literally anywhere. It's not possible. That game rocked. Saturday, this is a big event. I'm almost there. Saturday, May 21st on Star Wars Archives, there will be an episode called The Ben Years, with Jose and Trevor going a deep dive down with some of Kenobi's past. And there'll be more surprises, bonuses, all kinds of Kenobi content that whole week. Now, as we said, in that, what can you do to prepare for all that? You could pick up Kenobi by John Jackson Miller, do a reread, do your first read, or get an unabridged audiobook performed at audible.com or utini.com/audible. Or you can pick up from the Journals of Obi-Wan Kenobi for the comic on Wednesday for the Cosmic Force with the affiliate link in the description. Y'all excited for Kenobi Week? Charles, is that going to be a good time for you? You think? Maybe?
My entire life's been leading up to it, and I understand everyone's has, because it's something in the future of all our lives. But I'm really, really excited. I'm gonna try. I always do my best to tune into all the shows, but I'm gonna try my best to really celebrate that week. We're gonna see.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's right before celebrations when we're doing that. That's gonna be it's gonna be an exciting time in Star Wars history. We're gonna get a new TV show while we're at Celebration. It's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be all we can talk about, I feel like. So that's gonna be nuts.
Yeah, very excited for it. And if you missed it today, there were a couple new film stills that came out. We're not going to talk about them in detail because if we covered every single piece of film media that came out, we would never do another show. But Obi-Wan did have some stills that came out. And if you think that Kenobi's current outfit looks like Bail Organa's from Revenge of the Sith, that's what you can think. Maybe that's just what they're doing. Maybe he's inspired by a style icon like Bail Organa. I don't know. I'm not saying that, but if you think that, he looks very good in blue. And to all our noodle fans in the Discord, there's some noodles love on that. That's all I'll say about that. Stay tuned May 16th for Kenobi Week kickoff all across the UTini network. We want to give a special thank you to our patrons over at utini.com/Patreon or patreon.com/utini. We got a couple new patrons. We want to say thank you to Ziggy and Gervhopper. I think I said that right. There's no vowels in your username, but I put some in there. Who both became monthly patrons this past week. We hope you're enjoying the Revenge of the Sith commentary that we all got together and did recently. And we hope that you all enjoyed the UTini Network Multiverse event that's coming at the next goal. And as always, if you want to get some extra content or even say, hey, this is what I want to do, head over to utini.com/Patreon or contact Timothy in Discord, Mr. Guthrie, our Patreon manager, with some requests of stuff you'd like to see. All right, Wes, it is time for you and me and the board-certified doctors to do a Star Wars Weekly Roundup.
It's the Star Wars Weekly Roundup!
I just like saying that now. You know how guys are like, my wife, like they just like saying it a lot? I'm like, my board-certified doctor friends. Like,
it's technically, maybe I've jumped the gun a little bit. We're probably not technically board-certified yet. I mean, I probably have to get some kind of certificate or something in the mail that says that before it's like real, but, on the way.
Pretending to be board-certified doctor friends. That's not good. All right, y'all. We got a couple announcements this week from the great world of Star Wars, including a confirmation of something that we thought was going to happen, but now we know exactly that it's true. The fourth wave of the Essential Legends collection. Remember, the third one just came out, but the fourth wave got officially announced, and we have pictures of the covers here. Fellas, look at these. Charles, tell the fine folks what 3 books are coming for Wave 4.
Yeah, so we've got the Kratos Trap, which is book 3 of the X-Wing series. That's following up on the last 2 that were part of prior waves. We have Darth Maul Shadow Hunter, which I believe is one of Jared over at Legends Lookback's favorites. Mm-hmm. We have Death Troopers. That's right, the zombie horror novel Death Troopers.
The essential horror novel Death Troopers. Yeah. I mean, I gotta say, it's a fun book, guys. I've only read that out of these 3. I haven't gone to the X-Wing series. I'm very excited to read Shadowhunter. I've heard amazing things from Jared and others. Death Troopers is a lot of fun, and I gotta say, I wonder if it's in this collection purely so they could make that cover, because it's a cool looking cover.
Seriously. Yeah, Kratos Trap, historically, has got some of the best, is considered either the best or one of the best, X-Wing books, of the entire series. I'm a little behind. I read the first one, but I haven't read the second one. I listened to the first one on audiobook. Yep.
Wedge's Gamble is up there too, man. 2 and 3, I think, are the best of the original run, which is the first 4. So
sick. Yeah, I'm gonna have to dive into those. I've weirdly enough, this is something Jared and I have talked about before. It's pretty funny. I've never read that Maul book. It's one of the few Legends books that I've never read. I don't know why I've never read it. It's historically one of the better Legends books. I've just never gotten around to reading it. But we did a Halloween episode a couple years ago, I guess.
Yeah, where we read Death Troopers.
We read Death Troopers. Right, and it was I gotta say, I'm a little surprised to see it in the Essential collection. It's a weird kind of campy book. I don't think I would, if I were making a list of the first 20 books, I guess I'm not sure what number book we're on with the Essential Legends collections. If I were making a list of these are the first 20 Legends books, I guarantee I'm gonna put money on it. They're gonna print. I don't think I would have put it in that 20. Happy to see it. Happy to see it. It's a weird, fun book, but I'm kind of surprised that it got the stamp of Essential Legends approval. You know what I mean?
It makes you wonder what's coming next. Is Wave 4 going to have Ruins of Dantooine in there? I don't know.
We'll God, please.
Man. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Jedi is going to be yeah.
On the original Legends banner books for the Rogue Squadron series, did they number the books off to let you know which book it was or no?
Nope. I don't know that. I don't know that any Legends books have ever done that. Where they've said
That's super cool for people who just starting out, so they don't grab,
Yes.
the Kratos trap, and they're
Yeah.
like, "What the hell is going on here?" It
Exactly.
ended
Yeah.
really well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
they do
that's-
really well on telling like at book 3 of the Rogue Squadron collection. And I gotta say, all these 3 covers, I think this might be the most varied collection. We talked about that when we had our Essential Legends collection episode a couple weeks back on how we really like the variety of art styles. And with this one, I really love how the Kratos trap is like that striking green. Shadowhunter just has the full Maul silhouette, and then Death Troopers obviously is just a horror zombie show of
Oh, yeah.
stormtroopers. Like
Yeah,
it's a
for
really
sure.
fun. It's a really fun batch here. I really like
Yeah.
the
Yeah, it
visual
really is.
styles here.
It really is, and this is really motivating me to pick these up again, especially this Darth Maul book. I'm gonna read freaking Shadowhunter or listen to
Yes.
it. I guess they're doing audiobooks of all these now too,
all
right?
these
Like
ones.
that's the
Yep.
thing.
I think all 3
On
of
a
these are getting them.
bridge too, right?
Nice.
Yep. No
That's really
bridges.
sick. It's really
Very
sick.
excited. Justin, you shut your mouth about Splinters of the Mind's Eye Essential Legends collection. That being said, I could see it. I could see it because they're like, it's the
I can
first
see it
one.
too.
Let's
It's right
God damn.
there.
Well, we'll
It's
keep
got
you
its own
posted on that.
pedestal for everybody to see.
My goodness. Luckily, all that being said, those books are all out. For pre-order right now, go to the UTD new release calendar over at utd.com. You can pre-order those now. I believe they're coming later this year. I didn't write the date down. I believe it's August or September. So keep your eyes open. Next up, we got a piece of news that a lot of folks got very excited about, myself included, because the new Star Wars video game is coming, y'all. When's it coming? Not important. Because we never know with these things. Who knows if it'll exist.
If it comes,
we
is
can
the
be
question.
honest.
Yeah.
But a new Star Wars game coming from Skydance that's being co-created by Amy Hennig, who co-created the Uncharted games. Ever heard of them? Is making a Star Wars game, which is especially great because Amy was working on a Star Wars game before EA got the license for Star Wars and the Disney, like all that stuff happened. There was a Star Wars game in development by this studio that even had concept art that had like a concept little trailer at E3 years ago
Yeah,
of a
I
guy
remember
walking out of
that.
a cantina. It looked really cool. No idea if this is the same thing, but I love that she's getting another crack at the Star Wars license and that the studio that she runs is behind it because it sounds like there's a lot of cool creatives behind like Uncharted and those kind of games.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy that happens in game development, modern game development, that they can be like neck deep in building a game and then suddenly it's not being made anymore? That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. It's like,
you
oh, never mind.
you just go to work one day and like, after you've been working on a Star Wars game for like a year, you go to work one day and you're like, hey, this giant multi-billion-dollar franchise has pulled the rug out from under us. I guess we're not making this anymore. It's just crazy that even happened. So I don't know. I kind of have.
Yeah.
I love the Uncharted games. Uncharted 4 is probably probably in my top 3 games, literally of all time. It is such an utterly amazing experience. Literally one of the best story-driven games ever made, bar none. Seriously, really really fun game. Really excited to get anybody who worked on those games in a Star Wars game. That means rich storytelling is what I hope that means.
Yes.
So, that's gonna be really fun. I saw some comments in either our Slack or in Discord or somewhere. People were talking about how this is always a little risky with the like this weird cycle you get with game development, right? Because if you announce it too early, like you run the risk of people like getting burnt out because something doesn't happen or doesn't get made or it's too early in the production cycle. But if you announce it too late, you run the risk of like all these leaks and everybody already knowing everything and then being disappointed by the news. So it's this perfect balance of like when you're going to announce a game, but I can't help but wonder if it's not too early.
Yeah,
we
remember when
literally don't know
Fallout,
anything.
Remember when Fallout 4 got announced in like March and it came out in April or came out in November? Like that's the
Yeah.
only time I feel like a game ever nailed that where they're like, here's a trailer. It's coming in fall. And it did.
I know.
But nowadays,
Also, psych, this is gameplay. Here you go. It's like, what the heck? Like, how did they keep it in the wraps? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Between
Yeah.
this game and the other Star Wars game that they announced maybe a little prematurely, I don't know. We'll see if these ever come to fruition. I'm
be
afraid
happy
to have
when
hope
we
for
get-
Star Wars video games, to be honest.
Yeah.
Jacob said it in the chat, rip 1313. Like, I'm never going to forget it. I'm
Yeah.
never going to forget it. Right.
we'll
I'm
see what
scarred.
happens when we get here. I think that hopefully this means that it's a good studio. Good folks are working on it. They have time. Like, don't give me any dates. Don't give me anything until it's ready. I think Jedi Fallen Order 2 is probably going to be coming around Celebration as far as an official
Yeah,
announcement
surely they'll
goes.
announce that.
Yeah, so that'll be exciting. But of course, as there are more updates about that, we will let y'all know. One thing that we did get, though, this week that is happening, that is coming out because it's literally next to me, Star Wars Brotherhood got a new excerpt over in Gizmodo. And what was so great about this is that it reunited us as an audience with a dear old friend. Not Obi-Wan, not Anakin, Dexter Jettster. This man is in the book. The excerpt is a lot of fun.
What do you know?
What do you know? And if you weren't, I mean, I know people are so ridiculously hyped for this book for a number of reasons, but I feel like there's a weird amount of prequel love for Dexter Jettster.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Depends on how good your manners are.
When
how
I
big
first
your
saw him-
pocketbook is.
he seemed like on the fringe of being a bad guy. When I was just like,
Yeah.
just his overall aura and the type of like alien that
mustache.
he is. Yeah, that's what it was. It was the mustache. Big,
the
thick,
mustache.
consuming guy, 4 arms. I think.
Was he holding all those arms? Secrets.
This is the only guy that scratches his butt on screen, and that is canon. History of Star Wars.
Rio almost does, but he just won't.
Rio
do it.
pulls
He just pulls his pants up.
Yeah, so if you haven't checked that out, go over to Gizmodo, check out that excerpt, and make sure you get that pre-order in because this book comes out 2 weeks from tomorrow, y'all. Brotherhood is coming. I am
I just
almost
saw
done.
Charles like panic. I saw it in his eyes.
I can only there's
Wow.
only one book on my radar at any moment in time, and it's still Queen's Hope for me right now because we got that round table next week.
Next week, yep. Queen's Hope comes up next week. So we will be in full Queen's Hope mode when Brotherhood comes out. But be sure, if you're not reading excerpts, that's fine. Just make sure you get that pre-order in because this is the book you're going to want to read, especially if you're going to Celebration. I got a feeling. I feel like people are going to be chatting about this one, especially around the Del Rey
for
booth
sure.
and the Utini party. So get that in. Now, on the bad news of this, if you were hoping to pre-order the out-of-print edition of Thrawn Ascendancy Lesser Evil, they've been doing the saga of that. I don't know, Thrawn Ascendancy Lesser Evil. Remember that book 18 books ago? Because of the
it feels
supply
like.
chain, it got delayed. That version got delayed until tomorrow, the 26th, when it was supposed to go on sale. However, today, a bunch of us got an email, and our very own Jacob alerted me to this. Thanks, man. That sale date has now been pushed to May 10th, which, yes, is Brotherhood release day. So as you're getting Brotherhood, make sure you are on the out-of-print website at 10 a.m. Eastern to pre-order this My Chemical Thrawn Mance cover of Ascendancy Book 3.
Man.
Especially if you have the other two. These are,
He
I
looks
mean, they're,
like he is leading the Black Parade.
it absolutely
100%
does. I'm very excited for it. If you own the other two, you definitely obviously want to get this third one. But just as a heads up for everyone, that has been delayed. So set your calendars and make sure you're not in a business meeting at 10 a.m. Eastern on April. All right. If you want any other books, though, as I said earlier, go to utd.com to our release calendar. Get that Brotherhood pre-order in. You know what? Get that Shadow of the Sith and Padawan pre-orders in as well. Those are coming on June 28th and July 26th, respectively. You got plenty of stuff to read. But you know what? Sometimes it's hard to get in that zone. And after this break, we're going to tell you just how we get back in the zone if reading gets a little too much for us. But before we do, we gotta take that break. So we'll be back in a minute to talk about how to get back in the habit of reading.
It's the best back cover since Star Wars Episode 1 hardcover novelization. The one with young Anakin, because on the back, just to remind y'all, is a full headshot of Watto.
It's so big. It's
I think
so
I brought
large.
this up on one of the earliest episodes of the Living
my
Force
God, yeah.
ever, and I thought I'd bring it back.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Series and all of Legends. What do you guys think? Could it be the X-Wing series? Might just be the
It
most
was pretty
romance
steamy.
intensive series ever. And we're not just talking about the scene where Corran Horn describes his love affair with an otter. I mean, a Salonian that he hooked up with her and then he broke out in chives.
Yeah, not chives.
In
Not
chives.
chives.
What's it called? The bumps?
Hives, dude. Hives.
Chives
I'm so
go on your
sorry.
potato.
I'm hearing you
Chives,
say the same thing.
chives what
What is-
you put on the under potato. No C. Hives.
Hives.
Not chives.
What'd I say?
Chives.
It's not a very common story to approach. Yeah, again, drawing the complex family tree of Django to clone identical son to clone all identical millions of sons, but they're a generation older. So then the son is kind of all Django's equal, but then Boba is a generation younger. But then that clone son is Boba's age. But then is Boba his dad or his nephew or his uncle or his cousin? It's like.
And we are back. Always happy to show some love to our sister shows on Wednesday and Thursday. That's the Cosmic Force and Look Back Legends. I mean, Legends Look Back if you're nasty. Make sure you tune into those on all your platforms and this channel as well. All right, so tonight is a bit of an interesting show. It popped up a little organically as you know, every week we talk about all the books we read. We love these books. We love doing the roundtables. Obviously, we do a whole podcast, now 160 episodes about Star Wars books, which is kind of insane to think about. But sometimes I think it really can be difficult to get in the habit of reading again. I think that a lot of us came from different places before we started this show. So tonight, we're just going to have a conversation about kind of our histories with reading before The Living Force, about ups and downs we've had, about little tactics that we've used, both to keep on schedule, but even more importantly, to keep reading fun. Because if this thing wasn't fun, we wouldn't do it. Straight up, like, we love all y'all. We love being here every week. But if we didn't like reading these books, we wouldn't read them. Just kind of straight up. So, guys, I guess I want to start there. Let's go pre-Utini. Let's go pre-Living Force. Yeah. Like, what are your histories with reading? Charles, I'm gonna start with you. We'll be a little panel-y here. What's your history with reading? I mean, have you been were you a reader as a kid? Did you take a long break in your reading life? Like,
I was taught to read as a very young boy.
Good.
No, I always loved to read. I've actually always been a reader. I never had challenges with reading assignments and that kind of stuff because I would use my free time to read. I always kind of tended to move towards the like fantasy kind of stories, even when I was young. I think most people, when they're young, they have the imagination to really find their stories really gripping. And as you kind of move into adulthood, you lose a little bit of that imagination. But those of us that are still reading these type of stories, I like to think we retain a little bit of that. And that's kind of how we still enjoy those stories to this day. And I don't know, maybe we get some lessons that we otherwise wouldn't get. But all that to say, yes, I'm a reader. I'm a big reader. I have been for a long time. I went through phases, though, specifically with Star Wars. Like when I was really young, I read a lot of the books. I went through the typical phase where I became too cool for it. And then I picked it back up it was in high school. And kind of from there, never really looked back. But I will say that Utini and the Disney acquisition did kind of revamp me a little bit and make me say, okay, I'm going to read everything. Because when I walked back into things in high school, there was 20 years of Legends, and it didn't feel likely that I would ever get through that whole catalog.
Yeah, I'm right with you, actually. I'm gonna jump on just because I feel like we're pretty similar. I was a huge reader as a kid as well. All my free time in school, like finish homework, I put a book, always had a book with me. Also fantasy, a huge King Arthur fan as a kid. That was like my realm. Dragons, give it to me. Huge like Harry Potter, like all the stuff. And then when I got to college, I actually had a huge stopgap in reading for pleasure. I don't know whether it was the assigned reading and that got to me, or I started, doing more theater. I just didn't have time, but I just stopped reading. And what got me back into it, oddly, was comics. I read a lot of comics, not Star Wars comics, just like Marvel, DC, Image. In college, I had a weekly pull list, and I just read comics. And that's how I got a little bit back into the rhythm of reading words on the page, actually, because I just, for whatever it was, I think college also, because of the social stuff, I didn't want to just sit solitarily and read a book. I could do a comic book because it was 30 pages and then art and great, and then I could go off with my friends. But I didn't want to just spend hours in a solitary environment because I was at college and I was having fun and I was doing theater and blah. And then Utini really did get me back into the reading rhythm because having the, like you said, Charles, the desire to keep up with stuff, that kind of made that social. And we're going to talk about that a little later as a thing that can kind of break reading breaks or reading deserts, I guess, if you will. But yeah, it was weird tapping into that again, because as a kid, there's a picture my mom has of me sitting on a basketball in my driveway because I had the basketball hoop reading a book because I loved basketball. But I was like, I was shooting hoops, got tired, and then I put out a book. And I was like, man, I just didn't do that for so many years, and I missed it. And it's so nice to be back into that realm of like
Eric,
that imagination, like you're saying.
That will warp the basketball. Never sit on the basketball.
Oh, Wes, my skills warped that basketball far more than my butt. It did not. I did not do all of that. Yeah, well, Wes, Mr. Knowledgeable Basketball Man, what was your reading history?
Oh, so we want to go back all the way to Dr. Seuss when my favorite was Are You My Mother?
Absolutely.
That was my favorite.
That's right. We're going back to high school.
And then moving on
I like
to
Green Eggs and Ham personally. But, you know.
to elementary school, and I bought
Don't mess with the foot book?
the large version of The Stinky Cheese Man. Did you remember that book? That was a
Oh
good
my
one.
God, yes. Absolutely.
But my first big interest in reading were the Goosebump books. So when the Goosebump books come out, we basically, all my friends, we would collect them, we would read them, we would trade them back and forth. I specifically remember one Goosebump book that I had read. It took me 2 nights to read, and I was thrilled. And people thought I was crazy. Like my friends were like, "Oh my God, you finished that in 2 days." It was like 150 pages. It wasn't that long, but that was kind of my first interest into reading, and especially into like a sequence of books. But I mean, after that, I did not read a lot, and it was worsened in high school when, like in my English classes, we had to read Crime and Punishment and a lot of Shakespeare stuff, and I mean, it just killed my interest for reading. So the one thing that really brought me out of that funk was a lot of nonfiction stuff. Corey, that you probably attest to. I started reading a lot of nonfiction military books. I got into, my first one was Black Hawk Down, and then after reading Black Hawk Down,
it's a great book, by the way.
Yeah, it is a fantastic book. And there's just a lot of military books right after that, and I just kept reading one after the other. And then I recognized at a friend's house that he had 2 or 3 Star Wars books under his bed. And I say, "Hey, what the hell are these?" And then, story told, haven't read a single book since. Maybe 1 or 2 that weren't Star Wars books, but it's been like, I don't know. Now I have like 40 under my belt that have taken over my life. So
yeah, and I love that too, because the military thing and the Star Wars thing, I think, are so linked, because as children, I feel like, or most of us teenagers maybe, you're so often told that you can't just read all books about one thing. Like those aren't, you got to read a bunch of other kinds of books, which can be helpful, as we'll talk about in a second. But like, if you only read military books, if you only read Star Wars books, like you're reading books. Who cares? Like, I think that's a really harsh thing our society says.
Can we take a second to shout out Scholastic Book Fairs?
Yes.
Because I think that was everyone's favorite day or favorite week or whatever it was when the Scholastic Book Fair came. Oh my goodness. Good times.
Yeah, dude, I got Captain Underpants, like 3 volumes of that thing. Amazing.
Yeah, we spent all of our lunch money on the Far Side comic books. Like, we thought those were the greatest things ever.
Yeah, they were, man.
That was, great marketing thing to get kids into reading, and they made a bunch of money off of parents.
Like, I mean, like eventizing reading, socializing reading, like these are all tactics that I love. Now, Corey, when did you start reading about World War II? Were you 6 or 7?
6, actually. My read, you guys are gonna think this is interesting, because looking back on my reading journey, it's kind of shaped by a couple different things. First, you won't really be surprised by this at all, but my early reading journey was kind of like ruined by my personality in that I min-max everything in my life. And apparently, looking back, I was doing this as a kid because we had AR reading as a kid. You guys have that? Is that a national thing?
Yeah, I did. Dude, I took all the Lord of the Rings AR tests after seeing the movies and got my reading done for the year.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So you had to read these
Yes.
books and get points for them. And then like the people that had like the most score at the end of the year, they would get big prizes and stuff. And I figured out how to game that system when I was in like first or second grade because, my school didn't implement like the policy where you couldn't read like below a certain level for a long time. And I think I'm probably largely why they changed that when I was in like first grade is we would just check out me and my friends, we would check out the low level books, skim the crap out of them really fast in like 30 seconds, like to 2 minutes, then take the test and get like an 80% and then repeat just to get the points. Right. So we didn't, I didn't read for pleasure. I didn't know you could read for pleasure. I thought you read for points, right?
Assignments.
Assignments to win something. And like, I think, I remember my parents, like I was probably in third or fourth grade and they were like trying to force me to read. And they gave me a Hardy Boys book and they were like, you're going to be grounded if you don't finish this book, which is, kind of traumatizing to be honest.
Yeah.
So like I was like, I hated it. It was a punishment that I had to read and I wasn't interested in that at all. And, I think I was in I want to say the 6th grade, and I picked up the first book that I ever dived into, that I could travel to that place in my mind and find a joy in reading was Redwall. It was the Redwall series.
Corey, I met Brian Jakes.
No way.
Before he died. So Redwall was, I have every book at my parents' house.
Holy shit.
Redwall.
I'm like freaking out right now. Is that real?
So we were on vacation and before this had happened, I read Martin the Warrior and I did a book report. And one of the things you could do for book reports is make a newspaper. So I made this like newspaper and publisher that was like a newspaper of Martin the Warrior. And I was like, this is so cool. My mom kept it, hid it in the car, and secretly drove us to a bookstore in Ohio where Brian Jakes was doing a book signing and gave him my Martin the Warrior newspaper. She also brought my copies like Marl Fox and one of the other ones. And so I got them signed by him, met him, and he was the sweetest, nicest. He died a couple years back. Rest in peace, Brian Jakes. But like, he was so kind and fun, and my mom surprised me by meeting him because those books consumed me because they were fun, sweet, and some of the most violent things I've ever read in my entire life.
Yeah, we're dating ourselves, we're dating ourselves a little bit with this, but the Redwall series, it's kind of like a fantasy type series where there's this one castle that stands through the test of time, and every new book, it's like a new era of this castle. So it's entirely new characters, but there's one. It's like the location is the Abbey, is like the place that is. It's in every single book, and it's like a new people there, and there's a sword, and someone always has to take up the sword to defend the Abbey, and and I remember that was the first book I ever read, and I was like, holy crap, I like to read, and it made you feel really accomplished too when you read one because they were big books, right? I mean, they were long 500-page books. Like
I grabbed Salomon Dastrin off the shelf at the library because it had a badger on it. First one I read is book 5. I pulled the Corey. I just pulled the cover.
And you can do that with the Redwall series too. Yeah. Yeah. So that was like, and that really took me off in my reading experience. And I learned what imagination was. I learned that I had nothing to do with points after that. And like, I kind of started getting back into the Star Wars books like a little bit later than that. And you guys have heard that story 1,000 times. I picked up the 9th book in a 9-book series and read that first, but still it hooked me. And I kind of read those traditionally on vacations. When I was saying earlier that my community and the people I was around kind of shaped my reading experience. I'm looking back, I really didn't have access to a lot of books, to be honest. We had a very small library. I mean, you guys know I went to a really small public school in Georgia, the smallest one, actually. I graduated with 12 people. I went to public school. It's crazy. We had a very small library, and we had books and entertainment in novels and stuff, but there wasn't a huge selection by any stretch of the mind. So I didn't have access to any Star Wars books, honestly. Like the only time I ever got Star Wars books is we would go on vacation, and sometimes we would go to like a Barnes and Noble or something before, and I would buy like 4 or 5, like a huge stack, because that was all I would get for like the whole year, right? And when I got to I kept doing that kind of through high school. When I got to college, I still didn't know that libraries would have Star Wars books. This is probably part of the reason that I did this, but I learned how to be a computer nerd sometime in that span. And I found somebody like leaked all the books, like that were in existence at the time on the internet, and I learned how to do that. And don't do that. Don't torrent books. But I didn't know that this is all. I didn't know that you could just buy them everywhere. It was stupid. It's stupid to be a college kid now. Look back and know that. But I had a really old Kindle, and I had a whole bunch of Star Wars books on it, and I just blew through like 50% of Legends in like 2 years because of that. So, I mean, access to books is crazy, and it seems like nuts to be in 2012 or something like that, and not have access to books. But it's true. I didn't have Star Wars books. I didn't know you could just buy them. We didn't have, I seriously, we did not get DSL like fast internet until I was like a senior in high school in our community. I mean, it was crazy. So like Amazon wasn't a thing until after I went to college. So
Dude, Kindle was huge. I just want to throw this out there actually, because, there's definitely stigma to like reading certain books in public, right? And when I had a Kindle, I loaded that thing up with Star Wars books, and I would read anywhere because no one knows what I'm reading. Because I do remember I had a very traumatic experience reading one of my favorite books ever, sitting in class, and it's Captain Blood, His Odyssey. And it's like a pirate book. It's like an old swashbuckling pirate book. And I was reading it before class. And some girl, I don't remember who it was, walked in front of me, was sitting in front of me, and like looked at what book I was reading and laughed. And I was like, never again. Never again.
I'm sorry, Charles.
So Kindle came out, and I was like, I'm going to read everything on Kindle now. I didn't change what I read. I just changed how I read it.
Well, see, Charles,
I was just going to say, I think to transition a little bit, I think a lot of people that are in our community, especially that read Star Wars books, have similar backgrounds and stories to that though, Charles. Cause like there is like, it's now cool to like Star Wars. Seriously. Like nowadays it's cool to like Star Wars. Like I see teenagers and middle school kids with Star Wars shirts on all the time. And like it's cool to like Star Wars now. It was not cool to like Star Wars when we were kids. No. Like at least in that shapeable age of like, 7th through 10th grade or whatever, right? Like it was not cool to like Star Wars then. And a lot of people share that sort of feeling like you had to hide that experience to some degree, which is traumatizing. And we are lucky that we were able to somehow keep that love of reading, because a lot of people lost it. They lost it like during that period and they never kind of were able to go back. It was always work. It was always just for the points. It was always just to pass the assignment and that sort of thing. So, I feel very lucky that I sort of stumbled back into a Star Wars community, because when I started UTini, I don't know if you guys even know this. When I started UTini, I'd only kind of just barely gotten really back into reading Star Wars books after like a 5-year gap or something like that. So like, starting UTini is what made me start reading Star Wars books all the time again. And now I'm like totally caught up. So, the community makes it. And if you were bullied into not liking Star Wars books as a kid or something, then maybe you never read another one. So
and I find that interesting because there's so many reasons as a kid not to read, right? I mean, I think we all kind of hit that point of if you're forced to read, you don't want to do it, which is tough because obviously teachers, they're like, listen, we need to give them space to read like 10 minutes at the beginning of English class to read. And some kids thrive on that. Some kids really rebel against it. And then you have other things you're doing. You get made fun of like Charles. But I think that a thing that we don't talk about a lot is as adults, there are also quite a few hindrances to reading, just as a whole, as a hobby. And I want us to address that just for a bit, because I think as adults, we all assume that once you're out of school, you're working a job, you're like, right, my life is my own. I should be able to do all these things I want. And I find that to read as a habit can be difficult as an adult working a job, even if you don't have kids. If you feel like you don't have that much stuff on your plate, it can still be hard. And for me, I have gone through phases where it's difficult for me to read if I don't like have a deadline, right? Because those deadlines for me personally really help me. Like I got to review the books. I got to write the reviews for UTini. It really helps me to keep on track. But if I'm just reading for fun, other than that, it's hard for me purely because I feel I have so much more media to consume in my life. I love movies, TV shows. I love video games. I love all these things. And I feel like if I'm just sitting down and reading, my mind is like, what about that game you're playing? What about that show? Did you catch up on the episode? Do you want to go see a movie? And it's hard to like you said, Charles, earlier, go into that world because I worked 40 hours this week. And then I made dinners and I did things, and I have shorter amounts of time than I did when I was 7 And now I'm like, well, I should be playing a game. I should be doing something else. And I think that more so than anything, the desire to do like other fun things really doesn't allow me to read as easy as I used to. And I find that an odd hindrance for myself.
Yeah, I think the mediums in which we now have available to us to read has really changed the game a lot in regards to that, because like I sort of, you know, we've talked about this before, that like I have a really toxic trait of measuring my self-worth and my productivity, right? So it's very, very hard for me to like, you know, I got home at 5 o'clock today, you know, I'm going to eat some dinner and then I'm going to sit on the sofa and read for an hour. I don't know that I've ever done that in my life. Like seriously, like the only times I can make myself read is if I go to bed early and I can, you know, lay in bed and read for an hour or two before I go to sleep. That's it. That's the only time I've ever been able to make myself read in my life. So, you know, when I discover Audible and audiobooks, like suddenly that 24-minute commute that I have every morning is like filled with a really fun story. And it allows me to plow through books. Holy smokes. You don't even realize how quick you go through books when, if you have a 20-minute or more commute, you will seriously fly through audiobooks. It's ridiculous how fast you go through them, honestly. I mean, Wes, you told us you finished Queen's Hope in like, I got a week or something like that. Yeah. I'm like, that's crazy.
I finished it in probably like 5 or 6 days. But the thing is, Corey, when I listen to audiobooks, I don't listen to that 2 times the speed like you do. I don't understand. You can take all that in.
You know, I actually don't do that. Actually, Wes, everybody assumes that I listen to audiobooks at 2 times speed because we've joked about that before. I actually listen at normal speed on audiobooks 1 time. That's how I listen to audiobooks. Good. Yeah. Okay.
I listen to it faster than you. I listen to it at 1.1 times the speed. But,
there you go.
So
slow down, Speedy.
You have a 30-minute commute, and I have probably like an hour and 10 minutes each way.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I can knock it out a little easier than you can, I guess, and it helps me remember.
Yeah, well, and I think it's also interesting that we have grown up, the 4 of us, in various phases of like seeing media kind of take over the world in a way. I mean, it's a little hyperbolic, but it's also kind of true. Like when we were kids, getting home and you either had cartoons or if my parents were watching the TV, great, I'll go read my book. Like I didn't have a console. I didn't have social media. I couldn't look on TikTok. The internet was dial up. Like there was that moment of reading was an absolutely valid thing to do. And I personally lived far away from a lot of my friends. So I wasn't going to do things. And I think that's another hindrance that a lot of folks have in our community and a lot of communities. Reading is very solitary. And if you're living with someone at home, like whether it be a spouse, whether it be a roommate, whatever it may be, that is essentially giving a message of like, I'm going to be by myself for a while. You cannot hear what I'm doing. You cannot comment on what I'm doing. And if you try to talk to me, you will break my focus, which is like rude. And I think that's also a kind of a hard thing to do to people. You know what I mean? Like when you're on the bus or a public transit, it's easy to like say, shut up, I'm reading a book, don't look at me.
Yeah, right.
But do you guys find it odd if you're in a public space with people you love? Yeah, they do. Like, is that part of the reason that's hard?
It's part of the reason it's hard to read on the bus is that I'll throw up like on the ground.
That's fair.
I can't do it. I cannot read.
I
can't read in the car either. Caitlin can't read in the car either. Yeah, I mean, Caitlin and I, you know, I'm very fortunate in that I have a spouse who also really enjoys reading, and she, you know, she classically listens to those awful sick killer books like you see on TikTok where they're like you cut off all their body parts and put it in a bathtub.
I know,
she likes
cut off their ears, cut off. She's like just like making dinner, like
exactly. I love that TikTok trend of like the books that your wife is listening to when she's putting on her makeup in the morning, and it's like her body was chopped up and put into a blender, and she's just putting her makeup on. It's fine. Yeah, Caitlin listens to that shit all the time and like reads those books and stuff. So I am fortunate that I have a partner that really loves to read and enjoys reading. So. It's very easy for us to be like, hey, I'm going to read a book for a little while. Leave me the hell alone. Right. And it's fine. And like, that's entertainment. So it's like, it's the same in our relationship as me saying, hey, I'm going to go play video games with my friends. Like, or, she says, I'm going to watch a movie with my friend or something like that. You know what I mean? So, it's nice. But if you're in a relationship with someone who doesn't love to read, or you're in a house with your parents and nobody else in the house reads, or like you're the nerd, right, of the family. Cause we were that at one point, right? Like you're the nerd in the family that, wants to do this thing that nobody else is doing. It's hard. And it's hard for kids to grow up like that too, because, if you're shaped by that your whole life, then, that will certainly shape the way you feel about reading in the future. I mean, we talk about that with
Yeah.
patients all the time. That's a key thing you're supposed to discuss with parents during well child visits is, you know, you should be reading to your newborns even well before they're able to read. You should be reading to them. You should really get into the habit of reading to your children at a young age. It is crucial for language development. It's crucial for speech pattern development. It's crucial for vocabulary. Like, it's an incredibly, incredibly important part of growing up that, like, I feel like we have sort of rejected or neglected as a society to some degree. Like, we have built our entire reading experience all around points, and you have to do this to get grades. And we've not, you know, we're only just now, it seems like, starting to come around to the idea that reading is supposed to be something that we do for entertainment and not just for, you know, passing a grade, you know?
Yeah. And I think the acceptance of different kinds of reading too as being valid. I mean, like, you talk about us getting made fun of for reading Star Wars books or pirate books or whatever it may be. Like, I think teachers also are getting better at that, about realizing that you can count like kids that read a lot of manga, for example. Like, I know there were kids I knew in high school that read like without hyperbole, hundreds of volumes of manga, which is story and story and story and art and art and art. And that is now being way more widely accepted as like, no, you're getting story in your mind. You're reading, you're seeing the world.
Nothing is no format
thing.
is like less than any other thing. That's why it's really interesting and fun to see, you know, teachers that bring unique books into the classroom. That it's not just the same stuff that we all did in English, you know, British lit in high school, right? Like, it's not just Shakespeare. It's not just those types of things. Like, they're bringing interesting things into the classroom. And that's also why it's really discouraging and hurtful when you see things like, it's all these politicized events where they burn books and they ban books and all this awful stuff. They ban discussion of any sort of, like, you know, gender stuff in books in classrooms. That's why it's so discouraging, is because, like, those things are supposed to shape you. It's supposed to shape society, and it's not a bad thing that we have ideas written in books. You can't eradicate that type of stuff, right? No. And whenever society has historically tried to do that, it never works well, right? It never works for shaping the culture in the way that they want to shape it.
Yeah, and those stories can open such great doors. And I think that as we're older, we sometimes forget the power of books as we get out of that habit. So I now want to get to the kind of uplifting part now of how can we get back in these habits. So Charles, I want to start with you here. We've listed a few in our outline here, but also I just kind of want to open it up. If anyone is dealing with these hindrances we're talking about, or the ones that you may have gone through in your life, what are some ways? What are one of the ways they can try to either like snap back into reading, or what's one that really helped you get back into like reading is enjoyable and also I can do it a lot more than I thought?
Yeah, well, I think the main thing is Utini itself, is like the community itself. And for me personally, it has to be the roundtables, right? Because there is this accountability. There's a date that I have to have something done, and I have to have really thought about it and all of this stuff. And I think you could make that argument for really anything you're trying to get into. Obviously, we're talking about how do we stay consistent with reading here, but you could talk to it about, you know, cooking meals for yourself instead of eating out, or working out, or any habit you're trying to form. Accountability is like the key, at least early on. Like, at this point, I would say that even if we woke up tomorrow, Utini ceased to exist, I would continue reading these books. And it's because I formed that habit thanks to this community. But if I didn't have that, then I probably would have fallen off already. So I think it is identifying people that you might share this thing in common with, and trying to add like fellowship, like that aspect of community companionship to the thing itself. Because that's really what all these stories aim to do in the end, right? Like, they want to bring people together. They want it to be a shared experience. And so that's kind of how I approach it. But I think if Utini does that for you, that's awesome. And if you're someone who tunes in to all the roundtables, like, bless you. It has meant so much to me for my journey, and I hope that it's meant that for other people out there as well. But it doesn't have to be Utini. It can be anything. It can be your brother, your sister, your cousin. It can be someone on a forum that you've never met, that you just type messages to each other online. It can be anything, but it's just that community.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's one thing I've learned from
fun with
this
that.
from the internet, that for all the horrible things that social media has done to the world, if you love a thing, especially a book, someone else does too, and they want to talk about it, no matter what it
Yeah,
is.
for sure.
And we're talking things like book Twitter, booktube,
Mhm.
book talk, like Goodreads groups. Like there's having someone. It's what we wanted as kids, right? How'd you make a friend? You saw them playing a thing you liked to play and went up and said, "Hey, we're friends now." And you're reading a book. Oh, you read that book? That's how the four of us met. You like? Oh,
Yeah,
you like
that's
this
right.
book? I like this book, and now we're like best friends for years. And I
Yeah.
think that if you are looking for that, even outside of Star Wars, that exists. We have a whole channel in our Discord that is just books, which is non-Star Wars books. That's just like, hey, friends, what else are you reading? I would like to share what I'm reading, in just that little bit of recognition. If you don't have someone in your physical life that will see you reading and be like, hey, that looks great, find that community, and that will make you want to read more, because then you get to share
That's
more. And
true.
it's a fun feeling.
I feel like, and I'm pretty sure I'll feel the same way. Is finishing a book feels much more satisfying than, say, like finishing a TV show or finishing
Yeah,
like
it's true.
a movie.
Old school West coming
Yeah,
through
you know
right
what I
now.
mean? 'Cause
It's
then-
true.
And then there's just like that other communities. Like I'm not trying to be snobbish about like things like, oh, I read the book, I didn't watch the movie kind of thing. But like there's fewer people who can be able to finish books, and you can find that community that have actually read a book as than watch a TV show. So you probably have more in common with that one person
Yeah.
than like a whole group of people that have seen a TV show.
There's so much
Yeah.
more nuance to a book version of a story typically, because it's not,
Yeah.
there's no pre-made like, oh, this has to fit into a 22-minute episode of something, or
exactly.
a 2-hour movie. It's
Right.
like, no, the story is what the story is.
Mhm.
And there are 1,000-page books out there. Like it is
Yeah,
what
you
it
just
is.
take the time.
Exactly.
You don't really hear what the critics think versus the audience score. Like it's not like a
Yeah.
movie, right? Like you don't go into it with a lot of these preconceived expectations, and I think there is something a little more like intimate about reading a book. I mean, it takes a lot more commitment, because there's the time, the hours you're going to put into reading a long form novel versus, watching a movie or something like that. Like it requires a little more effort. Like it requires a little more thinking. Like you have to look for the thing that you're supposed to get out of it. It's not like, let me watch this episode of the TV show and then go see what the internet thinks about it, and now I'm going to form my opinion. It's not like that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you go through your own journey through the book yourself, regardless what anybody else thinks. And I feel like that experience is somewhat missing from video entertainment to some degree.
Yeah, and I think that's what we try to bring with the roundtables too, is that when we come to that first episode, the four of us, as well as all of you that listen and watch, everyone has their own thought, because we all read it separately. And then you come on, and it becomes the group idea as time goes on slowly, which is such a unique experience. And I love that social aspect of it. But Corey, I want you to hit on something you talked about earlier, because you really talked about how it's hard for you to find the time where you feel like you're not wasting time reading, so you switch to audiobooks. How important is just switching medium of storytelling, something that I think our generation especially can really key into?
Yeah. I think I think switching even stepping back from just medium, switching in general is very good for your reading habits. Like if I've in the last 6 months, the last year or so, I've really kind of dived into the productivity space to some degree, and like not just like getting shit done efficiently. It's not really what it's about. It's really more about like purpose in life and making the most of the time you have and that sort of thing. And the culture of reading is very much ingrained in that genre of books and and videos and that sort of thing. And so I've kind of been like diving into a lot of like how to read more efficiently, how to read better, how to choose things you like, and that sort of thing. And I've kind of come around to a lot of different ideas in regards to reading that have really resonated with me. And switching mediums is incredibly important. We kind of harped on that a little earlier. Why, if you have never done an audiobook, then try a couple, commit to one good one, pick a good book like Darth Plagueis, which is a 10 out of 10 amazing experience, and listen to that and see if you like it. Like try a different medium. Right? Try a different genre, try comics if you've never read comics and you've only ever read novels. comics don't have to have a connotation with them. It doesn't matter if you're a 50-year-old dude. You can read comics, like whatever.
there's
It's
story.
fine.
Why is going to an art museum okay and reading a comic book is juvenile? Because it's all art.
It's still
my
art.
guys.
I know. It's the same thing. I know.
It's
So
beautiful, and it's intense.
try different mediums. If you find that all you ever read is Star Wars books, then try a different genre, right? Like read a World War II book, like read a fantasy novel. I read a Fellowship of the Ring last month for the first time ever. So like try some different genres. And I think the thing I want to harp on the most here is I think it's incredibly important that I literally just learned this in the last 6 months, and it has like changed my life in regards to reading. Because I read a lot of like self-help and business and finance books and stuff like that. And like an idea I stumbled across seems so stupidly obvious, but I had never reflected on it is okay to not finish books. Like,
oh my God, same this year, first time.
Yes. I literally stumbled on this year. It's like, I don't know that nobody's ever really just given me permission to, but like the point of reading is not to read a book from start to finish. The point of reading is to get something out of the book, right? So like, if you pop open a self-help book and you think that only 3 of the 10 sections apply to you, then read those 3 sections, and then you can say that you've read the book. You don't have to like read every single page and reflect on every single page to say that I have read this book, right? Like, like also, who cares if you say if I have read this book? Like, what are we rating it? Like, I mean, yes, you can track the number of books you read in a year on Goodreads, but like that's irrelevant. It's okay to finish a book. So, I mean, if you pick up Catalyst by James Luceno, which is kind of a hard to get through Star Wars book for a lot of people, and you're not getting enjoyment out of it, then stop reading it and say that you didn't like it. You didn't want to finish it. That's fine. Like, that's okay to do that. You don't have to.
There are so many books.
Yes, there's literally millions, bazillions of books. Like, you don't have to read every single book from start to finish. It's totally okay to not be enjoying the experience. Put the damn thing down and maybe come back to it later, or maybe never come back to it. Like, that's fine.
And on that note of switching, I want to bring up something that I got here that has helped me in ruts too. And then Wes, I'm very interested in your processes, because you read so interesting. I love it a lot. But what I like about me trying to get out of Star Wars every once in a while, I love Star Wars books. I love them more than any other kind of books. But sometimes I do just want like a palate cleanser, just to like, I don't know, let's see what else is out there. But I use a trick, which here next to me is just buying books by Star Wars authors, because I know I like how they write books. And a lot of them, every Star Wars author that you know and love had to write another book first or something else in order to be found out by Star Wars to write a Star Wars book, to audition, essentially. So like Anyone by Charles Soule. Oh, I loved Light of the Jedi. I'm going to do that. Oh, I loved Phasma a lot. I went in reverse this way. I bought Delilah S. Dawson's novel, The Violence, because it's her newest book, and I relate to her old stuff. This Wanderers by Chuck Wendig is one of my favorite books of all time, because I loved Aftermath and the writing style, and I'm like, I wonder if that style would be fun in another way. So I think that for me personally, that is as well as the thing I'm going to say, probably to end out the show, has been the easiest way for me to get out of writing or reading ruts, is to be like, I'm not reading just a Star Wars book. I'm not reading just a non-Star Wars book. I'm kind of bridging the gap, because I love the way this author speaks to me as a reader. What else can they do aside from the universe I love? What can I learn from them? Because I already know going in, I don't have to learn about another prose style. I don't have to learn if I like this style. They already taught me that with my favorite universe, and I like that little cheat. It's one of my favorites.
I would like to point out by Indiana Trekker in the chat said that said his coworker says reading is healthy for your brain to get you to envision things unlike TV. I know I'm not the most articulate person in the world, but I can write a hell of an email, and that is because I've started reading a lot of books, and then I'll come across words I don't know what they are, but the context clues in between the sentence that I can figure out what the word is, and I can incorporate that into my writing. So just reading books alone can help you like form sentences, especially in like email or long form writing, even in speaking with your friends, and you'll have some kind of reference to go back on.
That's true.
So that's one awesome thing in the chat.
it's
Yeah,
super
love
good.
That was awesome. Yeah.
So for me, I started out like reading when I just started back getting into Star Wars books. I would, like Corey, a couple hours before bed, maybe an hour before bed, I would start reading. I would try to knock out a chapter or two, and then I would immediately fall asleep. And then I would try to find different ways to sit so I didn't fall asleep, maybe lay on my stomach and like feet up, but it didn't work. So I got into audiobooks. I got into
100%.
audiobooks and then I didn't know what to do with my hands. So I'm listening to the audiobook and then I'm just listening. But then I realized that, much like everybody in the chat, I can do the dishes while I listen to audiobooks.
Yeah,
and
dish crew, we love you.
And so, because I order the books to support the authors for the roundtables, I got so into audiobooks that I kept ordering the audiobooks. And I said, well, I have the book, so let's see how this works. I think Maggie does this too. So I would listen to the audiobook and read it at the same time. So somebody is reading to me as I read along with the book. And I take in so much more information doing that, and I can replay it, and I can find out where I've stopped. I can go back. I can listen to the audiobook, have them go forward. I can go back and read the last 2 or 3 sentences if I didn't get it, and still kind of hear if they're doing like a fight scene or something. I don't need to hear all the fight scene stuff. But if they're talking about the Force, then I'll go back and read a couple sentences back about the Force. Like, oh, now I get it. And then pick back up to where he's reading to me. So, I mean,
Yeah.
there's just
That's really interesting.
multiple different
hybrid
things.
reading. Yes. I love calling it hybrid reading. Yeah. That's the one downside about the review copies, because everything about it is awesome. I'm not even going to pretend I love getting review copies, love reading early. It's awesome. Thank you, Del Rey and Disney. Let's be real. But very rarely we also get audiobook access early.
That's true.
Most of the time, there's a couple times I've been able to do that. And it's very cool, but I go back and forth. So if I'm on a commute, I'll listen, and then I'll have the physical book in my bag, and I'll pick up and I'll find where it left off, and then I'll read silently at a place. And like that, switching it up and keeping it fun has been very fun for me as well. And I also want to say, I think that if you are a person, much like us, especially like Corey, who's like, your time is very valuable, you want to do a lot of good things, there is nothing wrong with going back to high school and literally scheduling reading time. If you want to say, hey, I want to read a book, there's no shame in being like, I don't know how to read as a habit. I don't know how to just read. I can't just get home and read a book. That's okay. Literally in your phone, say from, I don't know, maybe you get up early. Like people get up early, go to the gym. Get up early and exercise your mind. Be like, all right, from 8 to 8:30, I'm putting my phone on Do Not Disturb. I'm going to have a cup of coffee, and I'm just going to read a book. And like, that is sometimes what it takes. For me, I literally have to put my phone on Do Not Disturb. I do a lot of my notes for books on like pen and paper because I don't want to look at my phone. I turn my lights a certain way. I put on like lo-fi music. Like I really have to trick my brain into being relaxed sometimes to read because a lot of stuff's going on. And for us that have grown up now with video and distractions and notifications, that's okay to too. Like acknowledge that you need to create a Zen garden of your own mind now and then in order to read a book. And if you do that for a month, 6 months, a year, you will literally train yourself to read again. And I think there's nothing wrong with that because I do think a lot of us just straight up forget how to read for pleasure. So I think all these things are ways that we can do that.
And the certain mediums that you have, what is highest like on your priority list, how you want to replace that with reading? So whether it be podcasts you're listening to, a TV show, just
TikTok
certain things
going through.
Anything that takes up time.
Speaking, not myself.
Doing the laundry. Just don't do the laundry anymore and use that time to read.
You got clothes? You're fine.
You're listening to a podcast right now. Let's put it that way. You could be reading a book.
Foot in my mouth.
Everything else. What are you doing? We're still talking. You're wasting time right now. What are you doing? Read a book. I will say, though, one final thing I really like, and it kind of goes with a lot of the switching we've talked about. If you're finding yourself in a rut with Star Wars, you're finding yourself in a rut with whatever it may be, one, as Corey said, don't be afraid not to finish something. That's fine. Put it down. It's your time. It is okay. And most authors will tell you they don't mind if you don't finish their book. You bought their book. They got their money. Thank you. Moving on. But also play around with fiction, nonfiction, Star Wars, non-Star Wars, authors you've never thought about before, or especially authors that are not like you. If you are a person that's like, oh, I've read a lot of dudes and I'm a dude, pick up some female or non-binary authors. Pick up some authors of color. Pick up some authors that write more poetic styles. Pick up something that is just not what you read in high school or what you're reading now. Who knows? Maybe that'll jolt you into something you never knew you loved. There's just so many books to not discover something you really, really love. And I think you wouldn't binge an entire Netflix show for 8 to 10 hours
Right.
if you didn't like it.
I mean, just
You know?
find anything that interests you. I got into books like I worked 4 months in San Francisco and had any friends out there. I was just working and coming home to an empty apartment. I would read autobiographies of professional wrestlers because that
Yes!
That is very on brand for
that
you,
is
Wes.
what interests
I love
me.
it.
And before I had left, I had a suitcase of like 14 books from Barnes & Noble I went and grabbed that were all autobiographies from professional wrestlers talking about the crap they went through backstage. It's just anything that interests you, there's a book about it.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
true, man.
Could you
And you can
imagine
get it at your
podcast.
library. You can
Or
go
a
to your
podcast.
library. Use the free resources. You know?
Yeah, that's true.
Money is
Libby,
a huge
dude. Libby
thing.
is great. You can sign up for that stuff online. Libby is a really cool app. People have emailed us and said before that, like, we should talk about Libby more because, man, that would have changed my life as a kid. I talk about not having access to books. Like, that would have changed my life. Like,
Tell
if I had
folks,
a digital
what
access.
is Libby if no one's ever heard
Yeah.
of it?
Okay. Yeah. Libby is it's an online library, I guess. So it's connected to like the library systems, your local library systems. And like basically libraries nowadays have digital copies available of books and they have more copies of the digital version than they do like the regular version. So like 5 or 6 people can have the same book checked out and it'll deliver a copy to your Kindle or to the Kindle app on your phone or the Libby app on your phone. I think you can read in that specifically there too. And it's free. I mean, it's your library systems are, locally supported and government supported, right? So you can do that for free and read books for free. So that's a really great resource. Sometimes it is maybe a little unfortunately, but also fortunately, like people know about it now. So like sometimes it's pretty hard to get the book you really want. Which is hard. Emma in the chat just said that her local library doesn't participate in Libby, which makes me very sad. That may be true, but all you have to do is say that that's not your local library. Like you can basically choose what library is your library in Libby, and it takes some. You have to fiddle with the app. The app is not amazing, but you have to fiddle with the app a little bit to say that hey, I'm in New York or something, and like it'll give you a digital library card and something you can download from that library. So.
And as JG says in the chat, that does benefit authors. Like every author you follow on Twitter, like I love the idea that like buying books directly helps authors. It's how they make their living. It's why we say, don't be like Gold Corey. Make sure you're
don't do
paying
that.
for books or using libraries. Libraries buy those books for the sole purpose of lending them. Like they are meant to be read. The authors get paid for that. I know especially a lot of the Canadian authors have like a really good deal with the library system, but the US it's the same way. So there you go. Thanks, Wes. That's Libby right up on the screen here. If you want to do that, we don't care how you read or how you consume this content. We love the Star Wars universe. We love these stories, and however you're able to access these stories in a way that makes you love them more is great. Personally, I don't enjoy reading digital books, which is hilarious because all of our review copies are digital. I appreciate getting them, but if I can get a physical copy before review, I know I enjoy it more because for me, the tactile flipping of pages just does something to my brain. If you're an audiophile, if you're an audio person, sometimes listening to a book on audio is a completely different experience. Find the experience you love. It's your life and your entertainment. Tailor it to you. It is your solitary time. And I think once you respect that and experiment a little bit, you can really find an amazing world of books. And it'll get you right back in and you're going to love it. You can share with your friends. You can collect. You can be an idiot like me and put a bunch of copies of the same freaking book you've never cracked on your wall. You can do whatever you want to do. It's your life. And fellas, on that note, as we kind of wrap up here, I just want to ask you, what is the point of reading to you?
Oh, Jesus, that's kind of a heavy question, actually.
It is. There's a lot of things
for-
it can do, but for you personally,
that
what is
run
the
a-
point of reading?
Yeah, I think to me, reading Star Wars, especially specifically, has always been a way to escape reality, to put in your mind a place that you can see yourself in and you can experience vicariously through the pages. Like that is what reading has always been for me. It's like, and it's not just entertainment. It's
Right.
more than that. Like it is, like I find myself that if I find myself reading books that I can see myself participating in, and maybe that's why I like World War II books so much. Is like I'm fascinated by that, by what those people did, the way that they just left their homes that were younger than me. Now maybe I resonate with it a little less now, right? But like, I don't know. You escape to that. You escape to that reality and are able to set aside. Not really to necessarily escape your life, but you are able to remove yourself from the moment and just be present in the book, like in that moment. So that's what it is for me. It's always been that for me. I typically don't read a lot of genres that don't allow me to do that. So it's an escape for real.
Yeah,
Great
I
answer.
think it's what I said a little bit earlier. I mean, it's that community. It's that taking in stories. It's learning. Right. I think it was George R.R. Martin actually that has a quote that says a reader lives 1,000 lives. And I think that's true. I mean, if you think about us
That's
with
incredible.
all the stories
Wow.
we take in throughout our lives, the experiences we've had through these books, even though it is vicarious, the point of views we're introduced to through these books that otherwise we never would have had. I think it really enriches our lives beyond probably any other form of media, including movies, including TV. That's my personal opinion, but that's why we do it, is to live 1,000 lives. We'll never die.
Right, Wes. Charles wants to be immortal. Why do you read?
I like to read mainly Star Wars books, so I know about the backstory.
Wes just likes looking at the pictures. Let's be honest.
and bonus points if it's a pop-up book.
There was one.
So yeah, just getting the backstory, especially with Star Wars books, the expanded universe stuff, and mainly so I can shame my friends that think Star Wars is dumb, and when they want to talk to me about Star Wars, I'm like, no, listen here, this is why Mara Jade is not in those books. Or she's like, who is Mara Jade? Like, I'll tell you who Mara Jade is. But it's kind of like what you were saying, Charles. It's knowledge. It's learning. Not just if you're reading Star Wars books, you're reading everything. You're more knowledgeable after reading a book. You have better point of view from somebody such as the author. If you read multiple books on the same concept, then you get multiple points of view. It makes you more well read. It makes you more well rounded as a person. So you can find different aspects within society, within your neighborhood, with your friends. So not just looking at one being tunnel visioned with one concept. You can look at it from different views, and that's by picking up books and by reading other people's styles. So you can put yourself in a better part of life.
Dang. I gotta stop going last on these. No, those are all truly spectacular, and I think I'm gonna just say, for me, the purpose of reading is just to enjoy the process of getting a story. I think that I remember where I am when very intense pieces of media occur in my life. Like, media is very important to me. All of it. Like movies, TV shows, music, reading. Like, I remember where I was when I saw Endgame for the first time and that moment happens. I remember where I was when I finished Light of the Jedi. Like, I read because these moments and the way that really good writers describe them and the really good quotes that it passes the Corey test. Like, having those moments is so special. And I think with Star Wars, for some reason, there's just something about the way that universe attributes itself to books. I think, hot take for a Star Wars book podcast, like, I think that Star Wars does that better than any other IP I've read books from. I've read books in other IPs, and I think that Star Wars, just for whatever reason, it just works on the page so well. And these characters are characters of literature. They're characters of epic. And I think that when you're reading a good book, everything else just kind of shuts off, whether your life is good or not. You don't have to just be running away. It could just be a time to go away for a while. And I think that that experience is intimate and wonderful and is always welcoming. And, you know, I'm never going to get tired of it. I may find difficulty finding time to do it. But you know what? The other day I said, you know what? I'm forcing myself to go to a coffee shop on a Saturday morning and read a book for an hour. And I literally made myself leave my space, and I did it. And it was one of the most perfect ways to start my day because I was by myself in a crowd in a book. And I think that feeling will never go away.
What coffee did you order?
It's a caramel latte, and it was $7.
Oh my god!
Wow.
Oh man!
Was it
Somewhere,
Books are expensive,
somehow,
guys.
Dave Ramsey just had a small stroke, but that's okay.
Oh yeah, could I afford it? No. Did I love it? Absolutely. But on that note, folks, we are going to be back next week, as Charles said, with our first episode of our Queen's Hope Roundtable. Again, one of the reasons that keeps us coming back. I love these episodes. No matter what direction the conversation goes, I love chatting about books I've read with my friends, and I hope y'all come and hang out with us next week. And if you're listening to us, I hope that we're first in your podcast feed when it pops up on Thursday or Friday. Cannot wait to discuss more. But as of right now, if you're done with this podcast and it's early enough in the night, go read for a while. Go crack a book, read a chapter, read a couple pages. Trust me, it'll feel pretty cool. And on that note, my friends, that'll do it for this week's episode of The Living Force. If you already support us on Patreon, thank you so much for all that support, especially all of our new patrons. We hope you're enjoying all the content we had over there at patreon.com/Utini. A special thank you goes out to OK Endar, Brian Dooley, Patrick Ortiz, Earl Q, and Carl Sander on our Jedi High Council, and Matt Billington, Elizabeth Cloutier, Freddie C, and Sally and Chris Eilerson on our Alliance High Command. You can find us on Twitter. I'm at Eric Eilerson. Corey is at Corey M. Helton. Charles is at C. Hankel. Wes is at Boss Wes. A special thank you to Matt Davenport, our amazing editor, Ryan, our graphic designer extraordinaire, and Wes, our producer and community manager. Thank you to Corey, Charles, and Wes for podding with me tonight. Thanks to all of you for hanging out and sharing your love of reading with us. And as always, may the Force be with you.